Welcome back, viewers. Dr. Hafiz, we discussed this thing at the issue of class and caste, in especially it's relevant for Punjab and Sindh, because these are caste-based societies. But what impact does language and westernization has? Now let's discuss our social class for a change. Let's put ourselves under the microscope and take a good look at ourselves. Are we good role models for the lower social classes? Isn't it, after all, our social class that is the worst plundering in the political realm? It is the most embezzling social class. It is a social class that is hyper-westernized. Look at the way we dress and the language we speak. We almost look at ourselves with the eyes of the other.
Sure.
Isn't this? Don't we suffer from a disease?
Yes, I think xenophobia.
Yes.
It exists among some people, but most people are victims of xenocentrism. They don't like their own values, beliefs, culture,
self-loathing.
They just like what is Western, and that.
Let me give a disclaimer here that when I castigate ourselves, I do want us to understand that there is an exterior and there is an interior, but we'll talk about that.
Sure. I think what I mean to say that there are people who do not really appreciate their own strengths, their own values, their own culture, their own knowledge, their own history, their own heritage.
Right.
I just like to bring one thing here, which is actually our own knowledge, our own expertise, our own heritage. Somebody else is making a claim on it. There is a medicine or ointment for a disease called dermatitis, pulvery.
Right.
Now that medicine is produced or made out of herbs produced in India. Now the same knowledge which produces that medicine, it is now patented in US.
Which is Ayurvedic formulas.
It is Ayurvedic formula, but it is now in a way patented in US.
In the US.
It is bottled in a beautiful bottle and packaging.
And sold back to us.
New name, made in USA, sold back to us. Now both medicines are available in Lahore. One made in India for 50 rupees, approximately, I'm talking 3 years ago. And the same medicine sold for 2,000 rupees, made in USA. People will buy 2,000 rupees medicine, not 50 rupees, because our own culture has been discredited. Our own norms, values, beliefs, knowledge had been discredited. Now we should understand how does that happen.
Now is there a way out of that, Dr. Hafiz? What's the way out of that? I mean, I talked to the Iranian Ayatollahs once a time, and they just went on speaking Persian for half an hour without uttering a single word of English. We cannot do that with Urdu.
Well, we can do that, but if we start doing what the Iranians are doing. I went to Iran and I went to several universities, Mashhad in Iran and some other universities there. What I found out that all universities were working in Persian.
Yes.
Some departments were doing some work in English, but mostly in Persian. So they speak Persian fluently. On the other hand, in Pakistan, our universities, most of them, they work in English. 95% books in our libraries, university libraries, are in English.
In English, Now, if we hypothetically speaking, if we democratize the English language, let's say that we suddenly got a huge infusion of money from elsewhere, and we say that we in our social class we take so much pride in putting our children in different westernized schools, and so we say we democratize the whole phenomenon, and we create mushrooming of westernized schools all over the country, so that every person is speaking English, let's say, for a second. Sure, of course, our heritage is going to take a punch here, and the use of Urdu and Punjabi and Pashto and other languages, but it will minimize the friction in social classes, would it? At least at cognitive level.
I think this has happened in India in a way. For instance, in India, English language is no longer the identity marker of upper class. I mean, across the board, I've known couples who one is from sort of a remote part of India who speaks some other language, and the other is a Delhi-based person who speaks Urdu, and they communicate through English not because they want to elevate their social status, but actually that's the only common language between them. So Indians have a less sort of taxing relation with English language than we Pakistanis.
Because in South India, the literacy, English literacy is
Exactly.
90%, and if not, maybe more, I don't know, but
Yeah, of course.
in North India it is less.
So they have somehow
But
taken...
yet there is the social friction. Is
The
still there.
social fiction is there, but they have somehow taken the sting out of the English language that we still carry.
Right,
One.
right. That's very significant.
Yes, of course. Secondly, the most important thing is, I believe, this, this shame that you refer, that we don't no longer take pride on our own culture, values, heritage, and few other things. It's precisely because of colonialism. We have been made to feel ashamed of our own language. The missionary school that was set up, the convents, where it is, you will be punished if you speak even a word of Urdu.
Right, right.
So that colonial pathology, colonialism has created a pathology.
Right, I agree with you completely on that account, but now that the white man is gone, we have our own people running the show.
But colonial legacy remains.
Legacy remains, yes.
It does, and not only that, colonialism, as we were earlier talking about new imperialism, we do see that British has left, but Americans have stepped in.
No.
They were the ones who shaped the the most authentic educational policy document that we have today.
Now let's see if I hypothetically, going back to the issue of social classes, that those societies in which they take pride in their own their own language, Japan, you use Turkey, you have USA, Canada, European countries and so forth, they still have not been able to come out of this whole issue of social classes, because in America we know this process of third worldization that's going on has exacerbated the relations between the social classes, actually, because there are more have-nots now than the haves. And so even if this cognitive element or the cultural element that we spoke about that is applicable in our domain is not applicable there is still that friction of social classes that you earlier talked about that is continuing. And I was wondering if any of you want to comment on that how do we circumvent that here?
Well, you see, social classes, social distinctions, this is a need. I think humans do need that as individuals or as groups or classes.
So it's natural.
So it is, I think, natural to that functional level.
So can we say that it's natural as long as within its domains of justice and harmony and peace?
Well, I think for human growth, for development, we do need distinctions and identities. Probably it is difficult to have one identity.
That's right. There is multiplicity
I
of
think
identities.
we do need identities. For identity, we need to be different than others in certain characteristics. Maybe language,
the need for individuality and so forth.
We do need that.
Yes.
As groups, as communities, as societies, we do need that. Now, having said that, now we can use these distinctions and identities for growth and development, or we can just keep on fighting among ourselves, and we can decay and die.
Well, unfortunately, our time is up, but it was a very lovely discussion with both of you. The viewers, what we discussed today is the significance of social classes, on how different social classes come about, what happens in caste and class in Pakistan, and the ways out, because we, after all, need to have a peaceful society, not a society where the social classes are at war with each other. Dr. Hafiz, thank you very much for being with us. Dr. Tariq, thank you very much for being with us today also. Viewers, will be back next week. Khuda Hafiz.